Are you feeling lost and oftentimes wonder, will anyone ever find me in this dark place? I feel you, I see you, I was there until I found Jesus and His grace. Welcome to the If It's Just One podcast. I'm your host, Stashani Atkins. I must admit I don't have it all together, but I believe with a little encouragement we will make it to heaven together. We oftentimes underestimate the power of one, but Jesus left the 99 for one. And so, if this podcast only reaches one person, that's all that matters. This podcast will be focused on encouraging you, my brothers and sisters, to rise above the challenges that prevent us from being who God has called us to be. Stay tuned. We really need each other. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Thank you for rocking with me to episode 7. Today I want to talk about anxiety. Anxiety is so common among us, but I do not think anxiety is what God wants for our lives. Do you? But of course Satan will use it to distract us from living the life that God has called us to live. Remember, one of the devil's tools is deception. He deceives us into thinking that our situation is far worse than it is, and then we might start acting in ways that are self-destructive, because remember, the devil cannot destroy us, he can only tempt us to destroy ourselves. The devil wants us to live in his illusion where we dwell in negative states of mind. He loves to promote the idea of scarcity, where if we lose our jobs, he wants us to believe we will not get another job. If we didn't get that scholarship, he wants us to believe that there's no other way to attend university. Or if someone walks out of our lives, we will never be happy again. Whatever we may be going through, when we choose to live in the illusion that he created of our situation, it hides the fact that we are surrounded with infinite abundance because we serve a God that wants us to have life and have it more abundantly. Remember, that's what he did in the Garden of Eden. He made Eve forget all about the other trees that God said they could eat from. By shifting her focus to the one tree that they could not eat from, which later caused them to act from a place of scarcity rather than a place of abundance. The devil did not destroy Adam and Eve, but he tempted them and they destroyed themselves. And sometimes if we're not careful, we can fall in the scarcity mindset where we start getting anxious because of that one thing that is going wrong, that we forget everything else that is going right in our lives. Life is unpredictable, and the thought of not knowing what will come next can make us anxious. But we should remember we serve a loving God who holds the future in His hands. And He says the plans He has for us is not to harm us, but to give us hope and a future. As I speak, many of us are facing our different storms. Some might be more serious than others. Some might have the time to prepare because they saw it coming, while others are taken by surprise. Either way, when we're going through a storm, it is easy for anxiety to take over because we're focusing on what will be the outcome of the storm, rather than focusing on the one who controls the outcome of the storm. In St. Matthew 14 verses 22 to 33, Jesus was seen by his disciples walking on water, and they were afraid, saying that it was a spirit. But Peter begged Jesus to let him walk on the water to meet him, if he was indeed Jesus. And Jesus told him to come. But when Peter started to walk and he saw the boisterous winds, the Bible said he became afraid and he started to sink and was crying out to Jesus to save him. So we see when Peter took his focus off Jesus and started to focus on the boisterous wind, fear consumed him and he started to sink. And similarly, when we're in our storms and we see the boisterous winds, which represents the things that are coming at us from all directions, the job that was lost, the bills that are not paid, the rent that is due, we're tempted to become anxious to the point where we stop focusing on God and start focusing on our fears, and this is where we start to sink. There's another instance in the Bible in St. Matthew 8 verses 23 to 27, where the disciples encountered a storm, but this time Jesus was on the ship with them. It was such a terrible storm that the waves started to cover the ship, but Jesus was asleep in the storm. No, we should all aspire to be like Jesus, sleeping in the middle of a storm. Anyways, the disciples started to get scared and they cried out to Jesus, saying that he should save them. Now the disciples had Jesus in their ship, but yet they were still fearful when the waves started to cover the ship. And many of us can relate to the disciples. Even though Jesus is with us during the storm, we can still get anxious, because it is hard not to get anxious when you see the waves covering you. It's hard not to get anxious when you feel the wall closing in on you. It's hard not to get anxious when you feel like you're going to be crushed by the burden that you are carrying. But today I am here to tell you, my brothers and sisters, that we do not have to carry our burdens alone. We can give it to Jesus. In St. Matthew 11 verse 28, he says, "Come unto me, those who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Remember, when the disciples saw the waves covering them, they cried out to Jesus to save them, and Jesus rebuked the winds and the seas, and there was a great calm. Are you longing for that great calm? All you have to do is cry out to Jesus. Sometimes we sit with the burdens we're carrying until it starts to crush us, and we feel as if we have no one to talk to, because we're saying, who could even understand the gravity of my situation? But we can always look to Jesus. Only he can bring that great calm. When Jesus calmed the storm, they were so amazed, saying, "What manner of man is this, that even the wind and seas obey him?" Sometimes we have been walking with Jesus, but we're unaware of the power he has to speak to raging storms in our lives and bring that great calm. Some of you might be wondering, what have I done in my life to deserve all this? I am a good person. I have tried to live a life that is pleasing to the Lord. Why me? But my friends, bad things happen to the best of us. Being a good person does not exempt us from pain. I believe sometimes that's what qualifies us for pain. I said that because when we look at Job, it was because he was a perfect and upright man who feared God and hated evil that made God recommended him to Satan, because he knew no matter what Job went through, he would not let go of his faith. How beautiful it is to be recommended by God because he knows you can be trusted with pain. Job went through a very rough season in his life. He was a rich man, and in one day he lost everything, including his children. One bad news was coming in after the next, and each time the news got worse. And later on, sore boils broke out on his skin. Now it was one thing for things to be falling apart around Job, but it was another thing for it to be falling apart in him, because he maybe have to deal with being an object of scorn. So many of us might have been in Job's shoes, or are in Job's shoes right now, where we're hearing one bad news after the other, and it seems like everything is falling apart around us and in us. But I am encouraging you, friends, to be still and know that he is God, and he is upholding you with his righteous right hand. If there is someone watching this today and is wondering, can I ever be free from anxiety? Yes, you can. If you're tired of carrying your burden and pretending that everything is okay, if you're tired of the temporary fix that you get when you turn to other things to ease your anxiety, and if you're tired of trying to control the outcome, come to Jesus. Give your life to him so he can control your life and not anxiety. You might be asking, isn't he Jesus? Why can't he just take control? Well, he is gentle. He won't kick down the door. He wants you to open it. He wants to take your burden, but will you let him? He wants to have a relationship with you where you can tell him all about your troubles. I love Philippians 4 verse 6 that says, "Be anxious for nothing, but by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, make your requests be known unto God." If you haven't prayed in a long time, let this be your challenge for today or whenever you listen to this, to bring everything that you're anxious about to God. Let your requests be known to Him. The most beautiful thing is that when you have come to the end of yourself, there is Jesus, the one who has left the 99 to bring peace to your anxious heart. So, if you have a testimony of how God has helped you overcome anxiety, please feel free to share in the comment section. If this episode has encouraged you, please like and subscribe and share with someone you think it will encourage. See you in the next episode, and remember, we need Jesus and we need each other.